having shared that, sorry about that. I just got out of the shower and so happy to not only drink some tea, but to spill some tea, because I think it's very important for our community to know who we are dealing with, right? Or to at least ask those important questions, because it is traumatic and it is harmful to us as a lahui when these things don't get addressed. And I'm talking about things like censorship and toxic masculinity and misogyny in a way and form, and an internal misogyny too, because these things that we don't like from, quote, the other side, right, that happens in Trump circles are some of the same kinds of things that happen in progressive circles, that are happening now in organizations that keep silent because we don't want the other person, which is the wrong way to look at things when we're looking at our own governance, right? Yes, we don't want Heva actors, right? But at the same time, we need to call out those people that we do have and place into government. We need to call them out whenever they themselves are Heva and are practicing things, saying one thing and doing another, because that's harmful for our community, that's harmful for our engagement in our own governance, and it's harmful for the future. And it allows Heva behavior. It allows bad narratives to continue. And so, what I'm talking specifically about is current Mayor Richard Bisson and his campaign's insistence that I not sit on an interview panel that just today interviewed him and the other candidate, P. Denise Lacosta, for Maui Pono Network. Maui Pono Network is a supposedly community-based grassroots organization. The request came fairly close to the time that we were supposed to have the interview. Basically yesterday is what I was told. And yesterday afternoon, I was contacted by the gentleman, by Paul Delorier, who is recording all of the interviews and editing them and then separating them out so that everyone can see each candidate in their standalone video, even though maybe several of them may be getting interviewed on any particular given day. Usually it is a panel of 3 people, and I am and have been, as far as I can see, the only Kanaka, the only Wahine Kanaka on this panel. I preface this because, as I was saying yesterday, they requested of Mahi Pono Network that I be removed from his interview panel. I was not given clear and solid rationale about that, but was given a really weak excuse by text about aloha and vibes and agendas, which did nothing to address a seated official exerting authoritarian control over a community group, literally forcing censorship. Yes, there were other people on the panel, but to have my voice alone censored, and without even knowing what I was going to ask, as if my questions are outlandish and have no bearing whatsoever on what's going on in our community where I serve folks every day. This toxic, fragile masculinity, right, supported by his campaign organization, in silencing community voices because they challenge the paradigm, is Heva, and it's harmful. A man and his campaign were afraid. I mean, I don't know how else to take that, of what I might ask that a community organization bended to their will in order to get this interview. I keep bringing that up because I want people to think about that critically. A seated government official exerted, right, his campaign, him, whatever. If it wasn't him personally, he knows what his campaign is doing. I mean, he makes the appearances. And let me also just add that this appearance wasn't in person. It was on Zoom. So I don't see like where any kind of threat or any fear or anything like that might have come in. It's a Zoom call, and we are not physically present to each other or for each other. But he is zero in business influencing a community interview session for his comfort. And it causes me to wonder how many other times and with how many other individuals, organizations, other governments has he possibly done something like this and has pressured censorship to avoid transparency, accountability, or even opportunities we might have had that we've now missed out on because of this kind of arbitrary treatment and behavior. It's kind of giving Trump vibes because it's harmful for the community as a whole to silence an indigenous voice with the assistance of a supposed community organization. For the record, I do not support Yukile Sugimura. I do not support P. Denise Lacosta. And had I interviewed her, any agenda I would have had behind one question: how would you be able to serve Kanaka, whom you compare to the KKK, in your capacity as mayor, and serve them fairly and honestly? Because comments on social media, they're damaging. They're damaging for us all, especially in this time of strife with the things that are going on the continent, and that bleeding into here, into our politics. I don't support her, and I don't support Yukile either, because in more than 10 plus years that she has been involved in government, 10 or so years as a council member. But remember, she worked for several other mayors before that, and even as an economic development officer, I think it was, for Apana. I'll have to go check. But make no mistake, she's had like government relations and been in the government for many, many years. And again, for at least the last 10 years, she's been in a position where she helps determine the budget for our county, right? She has the opportunity to create really important and critical legislation instead of celebratory resolutions. She's had the opportunity, while as a seated council member, to make some great changes. And so I really fail to see what kinds of better changes she could possibly make as a mayor. I have zero faith in her because most of her action has not been for local community as a whole. And that community that she has supported have very specific economic interests. That being said, I'm not voting for Richard Bisson. As a Kanaka, to have that internal censorship from another Kanaka, right, who has supposedly done the practices and the protocols and knows what it means, right, to have that opportunity to ho'olauna and to be held accountable, to answer the tough questions that may or may not be tough. There was never no opportunity to ask them. But it really makes me wonder that how much more different would it be to have a Kanaka that actually adheres to Kanaka values, right? That it's not just Vaha, and that he doesn't participate or condone the silencing of another Native voice. While I am just one vote, I do influence others. And I ask folks to think critically. I've been looking in to see whether or not blank votes might make a difference. And you don't have to do at all anything that I do. You don't even have to listen to anything I say. And I'm sure that there are quite a few of you that are like, it's that crazy chick. She's always doing this or that, and she blah, 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 blah. I fully understand that. For me, that kind of underlying, I got black friends, so, I like black people. It's that same, I have women on my staff, or I have women in my campaign, so I can't be misogynist. I can't be contrary to women. That's not a good flex. That's not a good look. Especially from someone who wants to be paid with our taxpayer dollars to direct our governance. It's very harmful. And I had to say something about it. It's worrisome to me that someone that claims to be approachable can't even be on a Zoom call with a voting community member. It's worrisome on so many levels. And we absolutely can infer what we'll get with P. Denise LaCosta. We see it already. She's shown us who she is. And we have to look critically at Bisson. Not the, if he doesn't get in, then we'll have this, or we can't have him stop midstream. Those are excuses. So why don't we keep all incumbents in, right? Aren't they in the middle of projects that they need to see to its end? They're helping a specific community. That's not a good excuse that we have to keep a person in because to change another person, midstream, that would not work. Innovation, progress, those kinds of things happen when we don't do what we've always done. When we give creativity and inclusivity an opportunity. Yeah, that's what I've got to say. Away, Maui Pono Network, for not holding that container for true engagement, and instead pandering to the comfort levels and vibes of the candidates that you wish to choose from and put on your own slate, and then proffer that to folks who are incredulous about this voting season, who may not know very much about any candidate, and so look to organizations like them to see whom it is that they can possibly trust. And I don't trust Maui Pono Network. If they're trying to be an allyship to Kanaka, they are doing a horrible job of it. And I will say that right away, right up front. If any of you want to chat with me in person, y'all know that I work for Maui Rapid Response. Catch me on outreach, see me on the street, come to the warehouse when I'm there. Private message me here on Facebook or on Instagram. I am not afraid to come with receipts. And I do have ideas that, alongside other people, we've pitched to the county. And it's fallen continuously, time and time again, on those deaf ears that claim that they care for Lahui, right? So I just want folks to think about that. That's my tea. As people are worried about predators and things like that, and folks not being who they say they are, that's just something to think about. I am not in a position of power except for my vote and how I influence the votes of others. And that may or may not be a big deal to anybody, but for me, the right to vote the way I feel and my ideals, my morals, my ethics is my right. Pressuring folks into voting because we don't want somebody else is exactly what Trump supporters, sycophants, and acolytes are doing right now. Don't do it because the Democrats will take control. It's that same rhetoric. And it's a dangerous thing for us all because we don't move forward in any kind of cohesive way or in a community-minded way when those kinds of things are allowed to flourish and go unchecked and not called out. That's it. Mahalo for staying through this long tree talk. And be good to yourselves. Know that what you feel in your le'au, when you feel it so strongly, is the mana that you need to look at and follow. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Aloha to everyone. I hope you have a wonderful evening.